Celebrate two icons of Hollywood when we commemorate the 80th anniversary of Universal Pictures' classic horror films, Frankenstein and Dracula. And enjoy even more chills when we unearth a trove of classic creature thrills at the MONSTERPALOOZA convention to celebrate the legends of horror on this edition of Out and About.
We're here today at the Pomona Fox Theater. It's February 20th. It's a beautiful day, and we have a lot of people here to see Dracula and Frankenstein, the original 1931 Universal films. And it's a little burst of classic monsters in February.
Hundreds of fans line up at the Pomona Fox Theater to experience two Hollywood horror classics that were released within the same year.
February 14th, 1931 was the actual release date of Dracula, so we try to get it as close to that. 1931, February 14th, Dracula came out, so here we are 80 years later. Not exactly to the day, but we try to get it close.
You have a big crowd wrapped around this theater and a lot of memorabilia, I see.
We got a lot of people. It's out the door right now, and it's not even time to let people in, so hopefully we'll fill the place up with monster fans.
This is a beautiful old theater.
Yes, the theater itself, Pomona Fox Theater, was opened in 1931. So the theater is as old as the films. So what better place to have a film screening from 1931 films than a theater that was built that year. So yeah, it worked out nicely, and the Friends of the Fox, who's a new organization, started creating film screenings of classic movies last year. And I came to one and I just said, hey, if you guys are interested, I'm a film historian. How about doing some fun films? Today is the first one of 2011.
In addition to witnessing these classic films on the big screen, fans were treated to an assortment of classic horror memorabilia featuring these two Hollywood icons. And a pair of special guests added a touch of class to the ghoulish proceedings.
We have the families of the actors who made these great films way back when. Bela Lugosi Jr., who's Bela's son, and Sara Karloff, who's Boris Karloff's daughter. She'll be here, and she was born when they were filming Son of Frankenstein. And I think Bela was born just before that, in the 30s. So they remember all this stuff really well, so it's a treat to have them come out to join the celebration.
What is it like for you to be here to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the release of that special film?
Well, it's wonderful to have Dad have so many fans after all these years. I think his memory is going to be kept alive by the fans, and it's the most important thing.
I believe he's famous the world over.
Well, he is famous the world over. I get fan mail from all over the world.
What was it like for you as a child and being involved in and around your father and his work?
Well, Dad always got a lot of attention where he went, just because of his voice and his stage presence. And so he always got a lot of attention. And so, as a kid, you don't necessarily, want all that attention. But it was very interesting. At home, he was a very good dad and had a good relationship.
And you do have, I know everybody said it, you have his eyes.
Oh, I hope so.
I'm thrilled to be here, since I wasn't there when it was made, and most people ask me, oh, what was it like on the set? And I tell them, no matter how old you may think I am, I was not born when this film was made.
No, you weren't. But I noticed there's a certain streak in your hair that looks familiar to me. Is there a reason for that?
No. God gave that to me. Old age and decadent living.
Oh, it had nothing to do with
The bride.
the Bride of Frankenstein.
No.
But you are the daughter of Boris Karloff.
I am not the daughter of Frankenstein.
That's right. However, he did make, I think, 3 movies. Is that right?
He did. He made the original Frankenstein, and then the Bride of Frankenstein, and then the Son of Frankenstein.
Now, when you go into a restaurant and you give them your name, do they think you're kidding?
Well, sometimes I use my maiden name, but it's easier for a girl to disappear and hide. I can use my married name.
So you can turn it on and off, huh?
Can't most women.
Now, you have seen this movie, I believe.
Yes, I have. Many times, despite the fact I hate scary movies.
You hate scary movies? Is that why we're out in the lobby and you're not in there being frightened?
That's absolutely right. I don't like scary movies. I leave the room during Murder, She Wrote.
Well, I kind of like to have these little secrets from the Karloff family.
That's the only one you're going to learn today.
Hopefully people are excited to see these films on the big screen just as much as we are. I'll be the one in the theater most excited to see it on the big screen. I've never seen the films on the big screen before myself. I'm of the TV age who saw the films when they were shown on broadcast television in the 70s. So that's how I learned about the films. I was a kid in New York in the early 70s, and I saw all these films on local TV stations, including the Abbott and Costello films. And one of the first ones I remember seeing was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which was a spoof send-up of the monster films, even though it was also scary. And that became a big deal for a young guy. I dated it to probably about 1973, 74 when I first started seeing these. So I've been a big fan. It's pushing 40 years, and I've been writing about this stuff since about 1995.
Inside the darkened theater, the audience relishes each classic image, as both features relate their respective tales of Gothic romance horror and cautionary morality lesson, themes which resonate even today.
Bad jokes, bad
After the screenings, guests are treated to a question and answer session featuring Sara Karloff, Bela Lugosi Jr., and a panel of horror film fans and colleagues. During the illuminating session, each share anecdotes on their famous fathers while expressing their passion to maintain the legacy of their father's work. It seems as if these monsters of the silver screen are even more popular today as model kits and other items continue to attract collectors. It is a passion that has fueled the imagination of artists and filmmakers today as each new generation discovers and embraces the power of these Gothic horror legends. What was involved in creating this?
First building an armature, then slapping clay on it, getting all the forms right, and then after the sculpture's done, you make a silicone mold. And after that's done, you start casting.
How long does it take you to do that?
About 9 months.
Wow. So here it is, and it's revolving, and there's a little bit of a flower there. I think I remember that scene.
That was a scene in the movie where he's throwing daisies into the water with the little girl, and he runs out of daisies, so he thinks she'll float, and he throws her in the water, and she doesn't float. Probably the most childlike scene in the movie that portrayed his innocence, and that's what I kind of wanted to capture.
When Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi created these classic performances more than 80 years ago, they probably never imagined how influential their work would be for future generations.
I first saw my first horror film when I was 6. I found my first horror magazine when I was 8, and I was hooked. I wanted to be a makeup artist from that time on. So pretty much all my artistic efforts have been towards getting into the movie industry and doing this for a living. The sculpts that I do of movie makeups now are maybe odes to the makeup artists who did them.
I'm a big fan of the old Universal monsters. I wrote a book about the man who did all the makeup. His name was Jack Pierce. So he created all these characters: Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Mummy, the Bride of Frankenstein, Igor. That's how I got excited about it all. But I've been watching these movies since the early 70s.
My father would be absolutely amazed at the longevity of his career, the long legs his legacy has, but he would be so overwhelmed with gratitude at the fans. It's due to the fans. They have kept his legacy alive. The families are so grateful. They owe such a debt of gratitude to the fans, to the magazines, to the people who come and see these films, who attend the conventions, who are so gracious and wonderful to the families. It's overwhelming to us. It really is. And my father would say, "What's the big deal? An actor can't fix a sink and a plumber can't act." And that would really be his heartfelt feeling, because he was the most modest man and the most private man. He was a typical English gentleman, and he loved his profession. He felt he was the luckiest man on the face of the earth to be able to spend his life doing something he genuinely loved, and then, as he would say, as an aside, and then be jolly well paid for it.
There was a lot of people playing the Dracula character, but Dad set the bar for it, and it's hard for anybody to do that part without picking up some elements of Dad's performance.
The horror chills continue at a ghoulish gathering in Burbank, California. Stay with us as MONSTERPALOOZA unlocks the door to its infamous House of Horrors when Out and About continues.
My favorite subject is the classic Universal monster movies of the 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s. So my work's based around that.
How long did it take you to create it?
This one, I think, kind of can be coming in about a month or so. Well, I mean, normally I wouldn't, dare I say, rush a piece out this quick, but I wanted to get ready for the show. I wanted to have a nice, new surprise for the show, so
It's so big.
Oh, yeah. Well, what I was trying to capture is this movie was made in 1931, so we as modern audiences don't get the, the impact that audiences in 31 would have got when Frankenstein first appeared on the screen, so I figured the way to do that is make him larger than life, and we might get some kind of inkling of how you would have felt in 1931 to see this the most classic and most recognizable of all movie monsters on the big screen. So I decided size was the go bigger.
An infamous assembly of ghouls, demons, and other sordid souls haunt visitors at a special gathering at the Marriott Burbank Hotel and Convention Center to celebrate the morbid curiosity that has made Gothic horror a popular subject for generations.
MONSTERPALOOZA basically brings to the foreground art that is all monster related. It could be 2D art, it could be 3D art, it could be abstract, it could be anything that is of a unusual quality that feels real, but there's something a little off about it. It's the umbrella of creature creating.
Is that what we're going to see here today?
All day, all weekend is all the artists as well as independent artists showing their style, their unique spin on bringing different elements that have not been seen in a public type forum.
With its scores of booths featuring horror masks, models, and memorabilia on display by over 100 vendors, the gathering was a veritable who's who of the horror genre. Popular Hollywood legends combined with classic Gothic creature displays showcase the imagination and creativity that is driving much of today's youth, as it influences everything from movies and television to fashion and popular culture. I've got to say, everything here is so visual. I mean, there's just art all over the place.
Right. Well, again, that was the slant I was going after. I have been to a number of conventions over the years, and I always felt that more of the elements that appear on the screen, the product, the finished product, was usually what was focused on. And I wanted to investigate what is going on behind the scenes and before it is viewed by the public in a film or television production.
A highlight of the event includes the MONSTERPALOOZA Museum, a chilling chamber of horrors featuring props and figures from classic features that span generations of Gothic horror. From the early chills of Universal Pictures' classic feature Frankenstein and its many sequels, to the contemporary horrors of today's devils, demons, and vampires, the motley collection of molded monstrosities is a testament to its powerful influence over today's discriminating youth. And on the convention's main floor, fans were able to meet and greet some of the legendary stars who created these unforgettable characters.
We spent 3 months actually building the costume. They built one, and it looked like more or less like a torpedo, and no one liked it. And then they started building another one, and that finally is the one that we used in the film. And they built me, I think it was 2 or 3 full costumes, and went to Florida, and we shot all the underwater sequences at Waukulla Springs in Florida.
I understand that there was another gentleman playing the creature above ground. Is that right?
Yeah, when they hired me to swim underwater because they liked the way I swam, I'm 6 feet, and they wanted the creature to be big.
Oh.
So they hired Ben Chapman, who was 6'4", I believe, or 6'5", and he played the topside creature in the first creature film. And another gentleman, also 6'4", 6'5", Tom Hennessy, played the topside creature in the second feature. And Don Mcgowan, of course, was in the third feature.
Tell us more about that costume. Was that a hard thing to get into, or what was it like?
It became actually a suit. You stepped into it, and then they zipped it up the back, and then put the head on, the hands on, and the feet on, and that was it. It took about maybe 10 minutes to get in it, and 10 minutes to get out of it.
Well, that doesn't sound so bad. 10 minutes. No, I never saw the zipper, by the way.
No, the zipper was underneath the fin.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't use a tank because it would make it too bulky. So I breathed from an air hose, and I had safety people, each with air hoses. And when I went, I was always moving. And when I went totally limp, that was a signal to the safety men to bring me air.
Oh.
And it worked out very well, and we didn't have any accidents at all. The best way to put it is kind of like the suit was bulky and cumbersome, and after you got used to it, it wasn't too bad. But it's kind of like if a football player just starts playing football, he puts on a uniform, and it feels awkward and clumsy, but when you get in the game, you don't even know you have it on. And the creature suit was kind of like that. Once I got into the scene, I just forgot I was in a suit.
Another famous suit performer on hand is Japanese film actor Haruo Nakajima, who for countless features leveled the city of Tokyo as Japan's favorite monster, Godzilla.
こんなにゴジラをね、長くやって、こんなに人が大勢来たってのはまあ本当にありがたいことですね。これからも本当は私が年でなくて若い 形だったらもっとやりたいですね。
This is Henry Hull. He was in a movie called The Werewolf of London, which was 1935, and it was the first cinematic version of a werewolf. There was some silent movies, but this is the one that really started the Universal monster. This was 6 years prior to The Wolfman. This is an actor named of Henry Hull, and he played a botanist who gets bit by a werewolf in the Himalayas, and he's one of the, and a lot of the werewolf laws were invented in this movie, the full moon and being bit by a werewolf, which was taken from a vampire really, and amalgamated in the Universal movies. And the makeup of this guy was by the famous Jack Pierce, and he did all the makeups on all the Universal monsters, all the classics, Frankenstein, Dracula, and those guys. So we owe Jack Pierce a lot, you know.
This looks quite recognizable to me.
This is Charles Lawton from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1939, and you know, in my opinion, is the finest version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I mean, quite frankly, it doesn't seem like this guy's even acting. You really believe that Charles Lawton is this poor, accursed, deformed man who has to hide out in a bell tower because everybody despises him, and then but they only despise him because of their naivety and not his, you know. And really, it shows that he does have a heart of gold, and he actually becomes a hero at the end, and actually saves the heroine in the movie, as opposed to Abductor, which he gets accused of earlier.
This is particularly interesting and different.
This is Oliver Reed from a movie from 1960 called The Curse of the Werewolf. In fact, it's this movie that got me into movie monsters and making these guys. I saw this movie when I was 4 years old, and I remember to this day, I remember thinking, why is this poor man in a jail cell turning into a monster? And it was Oliver Reed, and this is the one, so this is my favorite character.
So do you see that movie once in a while?
Oh yeah, I've seen it so many times now. Yeah.
Are you still frightened?
No, I don't think he ever frightened me. I don't think he'd ever frightened me, because again, if you look at these characters, all the characters I'm personally displaying today, they've all got humanity inside of them. The Hunchback is a victim. The monster didn't want to be made. The Werewolf of London got bit, and Oliver Reed was cursed from birth. I mean, these are guys who are trapped in monsters. They're not monsters per se. They're human beings who are actually angst-ridden human beings who don't want to do what they do, and that's what appeals to me.
Besides the artists and sculptors, makeup experts are on hand, eager to display their skills to transform virtually anyone into a menacing fiend, and prompting many to attend the festivities, showcasing their own makeup skills.
I started off with the bite mark here, using a spirit gum base and then cotton ball I rolled up into little strips and placed in there, covering it with liquid latex, at which point I used reds and yellows and browns in order to make the blood and kind of infected look, covering with a blood gel and then fake blood.
How long did it take you to do all this?
This takes me about maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the most.
That's not very long.
It's not, and it just as long as the stuff, if I don't put too much liquid latex on so it dries fast enough. And then I started with the burn here, which is basically the same process, just kind of different use of what I use to make texture. Sometimes I'll do this with cornflakes, or I'll do cotton balls or something, just anything to give it texture. And so this then makes the burn, and I'm starting to peel.
But tell me, why are you doing all this?
I started off doing this stuff when I was a kid, making Halloween costumes and stuff, and I love doing makeup, so I just thought of different things to do and how to do it, and thinking up my own ways of making different wounds and monsters and everything.
Those are your eyes, or are they not?
No, these are contact lenses.
They're very penetrating.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Among the celebrities making an appearance at MONSTERPALOOZA was an E.T. star and a fan favorite whose performance opposite a rabid St. Bernard showed that man's best friend can be a woman's worst enemy.
There were actually 5 dogs and a stuntman in a dog suit. But the real dogs did most of the work, yeah.
And then you were that wonderful news lady in that movie.
The Howling? Mm-hmm. Yes, Karen White. One of my favorites.
I think the Howling that I did was when you came up with that line, or who came up with that line? The news lady is...
Oh my God, who knows? Probably Joe Dante or John Sayles, who wrote the original script. We did so much improvising, and everybody was welcome and encouraged to throw in their 2 cents. So,
some people are, famous just because of a couple of things they might have said.
I don't think an actor, producer, or director ever has any idea that anything is going to be a big hit.
I'm astounded to see that so many people are interested in monsters.
Well, I think it's, again, a way to escape reality, and you're not going to get harmed, and you're going to see something that you don't see in everyday life, and it's an escape.
Is this an event that happens every year or once in a lifetime, or what are your plans on that?
Well, this is our third show, and we're already looking into 2012 for our return back to the Marriott Burbank. And each year I want to bring a new element to the show, more artists, more presentations, and each year should feel fresh.